The door swung open, and my heart stopped. There I was, sprawled on my dorm bed, a forbidden letter clutched in my trembling hands, its words confessing a truth I'd buried for years. My best friend, Javier, stood frozen in the doorway, his dark eyes wide with shock, the pizza box in his hands nearly slipping to the floor. It was a crisp autumn evening at Portland State University, the kind where the air smelled of wet leaves and promise. I, Marcus Jackson, a 21-year-old art major with dreams bigger than my small-town Oregon roots, had been hiding a secret that felt heavier with every passing day. Javier Morales, my roommate and best friend since freshman orientation, was the one person I couldn't bear to lose, yet the one person I feared telling the truth. That letter, written in a moment of reckless courage to a guy I'd met at an art gallery, was never meant to be seen. But now, Javier's gaze burned into me, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. "Marcus, what is this?" Javier's voice was low, unsteady, as he stepped inside our cramped dorm room, the door clicking shut behind him. His usual easy grin was gone, replaced by something unreadable. I scrambled to shove the letter under my sketchbook, but it was too late. The words, "I think I'm in love with him," were seared into the air between us. I opened my mouth, but no words came. My pulse thundered in my ears. Javier and I had shared everything. Late-night talks about our fears, our families, our futures. He was the charismatic environmental science major who could charm anyone with his quick wit and warm laugh. At 22, with his tousled black hair and infectious energy, he was the sun to my quieter, introspective moon. But this was the one thing I'd kept locked away, terrified it would shatter the bond we'd built over 3 years. "I can explain," I finally stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. My hands shook as I stood, the letter crumpling in my fist. Javier set the pizza box on his desk, his movements slow, deliberate. He didn't look angry, but the silence was worse. It was heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. "Explain, then," he said, crossing his arms. His eyes searched mine, and I felt exposed, like every layer of myself was being peeled back. I wanted to run, to disappear into the Portland rain outside, but there was nowhere to go. This was our dorm, our home, our life together. And now, it was unraveling. I took a shaky breath. It's not what you think. Or maybe it is. I don't know. My words stumbled over each other, clumsy and raw. I didn't mean for you to see that. It's just I've been figuring things out. About myself. And I didn't know how to tell you. Javier's expression softened, but only slightly. "Figuring what out, Marcus? That you're—" He hesitated, the word hanging unspoken between us. He stepped closer, and I could smell the familiar scent of his cedarwood cologne, the one I'd teased him about buying in bulk. "You could have told me, you know. I'm your best friend." The word friend stung, though I wasn't sure why. I nodded, my throat tight. I was scared. I didn't want you to look at me differently. Or hate me. "Hate you?" Javier's voice cracked, and he ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I'd seen 1,000 times. "Marcus, I could never hate you. But you've been distant lately. I thought it was school, or stress, or I don't know. Not this." The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Outside, the hum of campus life drifted through the window, students laughing, bikes whirring by, the distant strum of a guitar. But in here, it was just us, caught in a moment that could either break us or rebuild us. I didn't know which. "I'm gay," I said, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. They felt foreign, yet freeing, like a weight I'd carried too long. I've known for a while, but I didn't know how to say it. Not to you, not to anyone. Javier didn't flinch, didn't pull away. He just stood there, his eyes locked on mine, and for the first time, I saw something flicker in them, something beyond surprise or confusion. Was it hurt? Relief? I couldn't tell. He took another step closer, and my breath caught. "Why didn't you trust me?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "After everything we've been through." I wanted to tell him it wasn't about trust. It was about fear. Fear of losing him. Fear of changing the one constant in my chaotic life. Javier had been there through my parents' divorce, through my late-night panic attacks about failing art school, through every moment I felt like I wasn't enough. But how could I explain that the person I was most afraid of losing was also the person I was starting to feel something for, something I couldn't name? "I didn't want to mess this up," I said, gesturing between us. "You're your everything to me, Javi." I didn't know how to say it without ruining what we have. He was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, a short, disbelieving sound. "Ruin us? Marcus, you're an idiot." He stepped even closer, close enough that I could see the faint freckles across his nose, the ones he hated but I secretly loved. "You think I'd walk away because of who you are?" My heart pounded, a mix of hope and dread. "Then why do you look so I don't know upset?" Javier's smile faded, and he looked down at his sneakers, scuffing them against the worn carpet. "I'm not upset about that. I'm upset because you didn't tell me. Because you've been carrying this alone, and I didn't even notice." He looked up, his eyes glistening. I should have noticed. The vulnerability in his voice caught me off guard. Javier, the guy who always had a joke to defuse tension, was standing here, raw and open. I wanted to reach out, to close the distance between us, but I didn't know how. Not yet. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I didn't know how to start. He nodded, his gaze softening. "Start now," he said. "Tell me everything." And so I did. I told him about the moments I'd questioned myself, the late-night Google searches, the guy at the gallery who'd made my heart race, but who wasn't the real reason for the letter. The letter was a confession to myself, a way to make my truth real. Javier listened, his expression shifting from surprise to understanding, and when I finished, he didn't say anything. He just pulled me into a hug, his arms strong and steady, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. But as his warmth enveloped me, a new fear crept in. The letter hadn't named names, but the truth was, the person I'd been writing about, the one I was falling for, wasn't the guy from the gallery. It was Javier, and I had no idea how to tell him that without risking everything. The next few days were a blur of awkward silences and stolen glances. Javier and I tiptoed around each other in our dorm, the air thick with unspoken questions. I wanted to believe his hug meant acceptance, but the weight of my unspoken feelings for him grew heavier, like a secret threatening to burst. Portland's autumn deepened, the campus draped in golden leaves and misty rain. Javier and I still ate meals together, still laughed at dumb TikToks, but there was a new tension, a current running beneath our usual banter. I caught him watching me sometimes, his dark eyes thoughtful, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I wondered if he sensed the truth I hadn't dared voice, that my feelings for him were more than friendship. One rainy afternoon, we were studying in the library, surrounded by towering bookshelves and the soft hum of fluorescent lights. Javier was sprawled across from me, his environmental science textbook open but ignored, his pen tapping a restless rhythm. I was sketching in my notebook, trying to focus on a still life for class, but my pencil kept tracing the lines of his face instead. "Yo, Marcus," Javier said suddenly, breaking the silence. "You ever gonna tell me who the letter was about?" His tone was casual, but his eyes were sharp, searching. My pencil froze. I'd been dreading this question, knowing it would come eventually. "It's complicated," I mumbled, shading in a non-existent shadow to avoid his gaze. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Complicated how? You said it was about figuring yourself out, but there's someone, right? The guy you're into." His voice was gentle, but there was an edge to it, like he was bracing for something. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. I could lie, make up a name, keep the peace. But the truth was clawing at me, demanding to be free. Yeah, there's someone, I admitted, my voice barely audible. But it's not what you think. Javier raised an eyebrow, his usual smirk flickering. What do I think? Enlighten me. I closed my sketchbook, my hands trembling. You think it's some random guy from the gallery, or someone I met at a party. But it's not. It's... I stopped, the words catching in my throat. I couldn't do this. Not here, not now. But Javier didn't let it go. Marcus, just say it. Whoever it is, it's okay. I'm not going to judge you. His voice was so earnest, so Javier, that it broke something in me. It's you. I blurted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. The letter was about you. The library seemed to go silent, the world narrowing to just us. Javier's eyes widened, his mouth parting slightly. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. Then, slowly, he leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his hair. Me, he said, his voice a mix of disbelief and something else, something I couldn't name. You're serious? I nodded, my face burning. I didn't mean for it to happen. I started seeing you differently. The way you laugh, the way you're always there, the way you make everything better. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't. And I wrote that letter to get it out, to make sense of it. I never meant for you to see it. Javier stared at me, his expression unreadable. My stomach twisted. I'd ruined everything. He'd move out, we'd drift apart, and I'd lose the one person who meant the world to me. But then, he did something I didn't expect. He laughed, a soft, nervous laugh that made my heart skip. Dude, you're full of surprises, he said, shaking his head. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, I said quickly, desperate to fill the silence. I know this is a lot. I know you're not into guys. I just needed to be honest. I'll get over it, I promise. I don't want to lose you. Javier's smile faded, and he looked at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. Who said I'm not into guys? He asked quietly. The words hit me like a freight train. I blinked, sure I'd misheard. What? He leaned forward again, his voice low. I've never said I'm straight, Marcus. I've never really labeled it. I've always been focused on school, on my goals. But you, he hesitated, his eyes searching mine. You're different. You've always been different. My mind reeled. Javier, the guy who dated a string of girls in freshman year, who always seemed so sure of himself, was saying this? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry or run. So you're saying you might feel something too? I asked, my voice shaking. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached across the table, his hand brushing mine. It was a small gesture, but it sent a jolt through me, like electricity. I'm saying I don't know what I feel, he admitted. But I know I don't want to lose you either. And I know that when I read that letter, I wasn't mad. I was jealous. Jealous. I echoed, my heart pounding. He nodded, his thumb grazing my knuckles. Yeah, the thought of you writing that about someone else, it messed me up. I didn't expect it to, but it did. The library faded away, the world shrinking to the warmth of his hand on mine. I didn't know what this meant, didn't know where we'd go from here. But for the first time, I felt a spark of hope, a dangerous, beautiful hope that maybe, just maybe, we could be more than friends. The weeks that followed were a dance of tentative steps and unspoken promises. Javier and I didn't label what was happening between us, but something had shifted. Our late-night talks grew deeper, our casual touches lingered longer, and every smile felt like a secret shared. Yet, beneath the thrill, there was a current of fear that we were crossing a line we couldn't uncross. Portland's winter arrived, blanketing the campus in frost and quiet. We spent more time together, studying in coffee shops, sketching in the park, or just lying on the dorm floor listening to music. But the closer we got, the more I noticed Javier's hesitation. He'd pull back sometimes, his eyes clouded with doubt, and I wondered if he was as scared as I was. One night, we ended up at a rooftop garden party hosted by the art department, a hidden gem above a downtown studio. String lights twinkled against the night sky, and the air was filled with laughter and the clink of glasses. Javier looked unfairly good in a navy sweater, his hair catching the glow of the lights. We sat on a bench, our knees touching, sharing a plate of cupcakes from the dessert table. "You ever think about the future?" Javier asked, his voice soft as he licked frosting off his thumb. "Like, where we'll be in 5 years." I shrugged, my heart racing at the we. "I try not to. Future's scary. I just want to make art, you know? Maybe have a gallery show someday." He nodded, his eyes distant. "I want to save the planet. Or at least a piece of it. Work for a nonprofit, maybe." But he trailed off, his fingers tracing the edge of his cup. "But what?" I prompted, nudging his shoulder. He looked at me, his expression raw. "But I keep thinking about you. About us. And it's messing with my head." My breath caught. "In a good way or a bad way?" "Both," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've never felt like this before. Not with anyone. But I'm scared, Marcus. What if we mess this up? What if we hurt each other?" I wanted to tell him we wouldn't, that we could figure it out together. But before I could speak, a voice interrupted us. "Javier? Oh my God, is that you?" We turned to see a girl approaching, her blonde hair catching the light. It was Emily, Javier's ex from sophomore year. She was all smiles, but there was a sharpness in her eyes as she looked at me. "And Marcus, right? The roommate." "Yeah," I said, forcing a smile. Javier's posture stiffened, and I felt a pang of unease. Emily sat down uninvited, launching into a story about her new internship. Javier laughed along, but I could tell he was uncomfortable. When she finally left, he turned to me, his expression apologetic. "Sorry about that. She's a lot." "It's fine," I said, but it wasn't. Emily's presence had reminded me of the world outside our bubble, the world where Javier had dated girls, where people expected him to be someone he might not be. I wondered if he was still figuring that out himself. Later, as we walked back to the dorm, the silence between us was heavy. The city lights reflected off the wet pavement, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the edge of something fragile. "Javi," I said, stopping under a street lamp. "Are you sure about this? About us?" He stopped too, his hands in his pockets. "I don't know what I'm sure of," he said honestly. "But I know I want to try. I want to see where this goes." "Don't you?" I nodded, my throat tight. "More than anything." He stepped closer, his breath visible in the cold air. For a moment, I thought he might kiss me. But instead, he pulled me into a hug, his chin resting on my shoulder. "We'll figure it out," he whispered. "Together." But as we walked on, I couldn't shake the feeling that our path wouldn't be easy. Emily's interruption had stirred something in me, a fear that the world wouldn't let us have this, that it would demand we fit into boxes we didn't belong in. And deep down, I wondered if Javier was ready to face that fight. Winter break loomed, and with it, the reality of going home. Javier was heading to his family's place in Seattle, while I was bound for my mom's tiny apartment in Eugene. The thought of being apart for 3 weeks felt unbearable, especially with our feelings still so new, so fragile. We hadn't kissed, hadn't crossed that final line, but every touch, every look, felt like a promise. The night before we left, we stayed up late in the dorm, the room lit only by a string of Christmas lights we'd hung haphazardly. Javier was packing, tossing clothes into a duffel bag, while I sat cross-legged on my bed, sketching him without thinking. He caught me, his lips quirking into a smile. "Am I your muse now?" he teased, flopping onto my bed beside me. "Always have been," I said, my voice softer than I meant. His smile faded, replaced by something deeper, more serious. He reached for my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine. "Marcus," he said, his voice low. I'm scared about going home. My family, they're traditional. They don't know about any of this. I don't know how to tell them. I squeezed his hand, my heart aching for him. You don't have to tell them yet. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Just be you. He nodded, but his eyes were distant. What about you? Your mom cool with this? I shrugged. She's trying. She knows I'm gay, but we don't talk about it much. She's got her own stuff going on. I paused, then added, but she'd love you. She'd say you're too good for me. My heart stopped. Before I could respond, he leaned in, his lips brushing mine. It was soft, tentative, but it set my world on fire. I kissed him back, my hands finding his face, and for a moment, nothing else existed. No fears, no doubts, just us. But the world didn't let us stay in that moment. Over break, Javier's texts grew sporadic, his usual warmth replaced by short, vague replies. I tried not to panic, but by the time we returned to campus, I could feel the distance between us. He was quieter, his smiles forced. When I finally confronted him, he admitted the truth. His family had been pushing him to settle down, to be the son they expected. He'd spent the break wrestling with their expectations and his own feelings. I don't know if I can do this, he said one night, his voice breaking. I want a Marcus. I want us, but I'm scared I'll let you down. I took his hands, my heart pounding. You won't. We'll face it together, your family, the world, all of it. I'm not going anywhere. He looked at me, tears in his eyes, and nodded. Okay, he whispered. Together. Spring came, and with it, a new beginning. We took small steps, holding hands in public, telling our closest friends, facing the stares and whispers with defiance. It wasn't easy. There were fights, moments of doubt, and days when the world felt too heavy. But there were also moments of joy, late-night dances in our dorm, stolen kisses in the rain, and the quiet certainty that we were building something real. One evening, we returned to the rooftop garden, the place where it all began. The city sparkled below, and Javier pulled me close, his arms warm against the spring chill. I love you, he said, the words simple but seismic. I love you too, I replied, and for the first time, I believed we could face anything. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We'd stumbled, fought, and grown, learning that love wasn't just about the spark. It was about the courage to keep going, to choose each other every day. And as we stood there, the city alive around us, I knew we'd changed each other's lives forever, not just because we'd fallen in love, but because we'd learned to love ourselves, too.